What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the first video on what if Deku had the power of the four heavenly beasts. Now, if you're confused on what the four heavenly beasts are, don't worry, you're in full right to be. I'm just a weirdo who likes to search up his Chinese history. Now, see, the four heavenly beasts are the black turtle of the north. Also, it's occasionally known as the Black Warrior, but we're going for turtle for this one. The White Tiger of the West, the Vermilion Phoenix of the South, and the Azul Dragon of the East. So, when Izuku was quite young, Izuku was about around the age of 4. Okay, we're going to start with the what if. Izuku was around the age of 4, and he ended up seeing Bakugo bully a kid. Now, Izuku decided to attempt to try to stop the bullying. Izuku knew that he didn't have any quirk and that Bakugo was most likely gonna, beat him up for trying to stop him from bullying, but Izuku didn't care because he just wanted to defend the kid who was currently getting hurt. Izuku decided to end up trying to defend and got in the way of Bakugo's explosion. Bakugo ended up exploding, but when he hit Izuku, he saw that Izuku's skin had turned a black, scaly color. And when it had hit him, it almost seemed like his explosion did nothing, and Izuku ended up getting what appeared to be green, rune-looking patterns on his hands. Bakugo at first was kind of freaked out, but then thought that maybe this was Izuku's quirk, and he actually felt somewhat excited. Izuku had just unlocked his quirk. It's amazing. Izuku looked at himself and was kind of shocked at first, and then quickly the quirk deactivated, almost without him even understanding what had happened. Izuku then ended up looking kind of shocked and looked at Bakugo and then looked back at his hands themselves and understood that the power he just accessed was something totally different. And, he was like, "What was that?" And Bakugo said, "I don't know, Izuku, but whatever you activated was kind of weird, You activated it and then it ended up absorbing my explosion, I think." Izuku didn't understand, but he quickly ran home to tell his mom. He said, Mom, I have a quirk." Inko found this kind of weird and asked Izuku, "What's your quirk?" Izuku then ended up stating that his quirk was some weird turtle transformation. Izuku ended up calling it, which confused Inko even more, before Izuku eventually showed her his quirk, where he willed himself to transform into the black-looking turtle. But this time, the green runes that were on his body were white instead of green, which confused Izuku. And he stated, "After Bakugo had used his quirk, I ended up getting green. My runes on my body, these colors ended up turning green." Huh. Inko was very confused at this point and didn't even know what to say to Izuku. Like, her boy had just said that he has a quirk, which she was amazed about, and also stated his quirk was very weird. It seemed to be very situational. It seemed to be a highly defensive quirk, which Inko thought that was amazing for Izuku because Izuku wanted to be a hero. But she also knew he wanted to be a hero like All Might, and decided that a quirk like this might actually be a little bit slightly detrimental to Izuku. Eventually, Inko took Izuku into the quirk doctor, and the quirk doctor started to test out Izuku. Izuku's quirk got called Turtle Transformation, and his quirk gave him the unique ability to store kinetic energy as potential energy inside the runes on his body and then release it back at his opponents, and to control the shockwaves that it created. So he can nullify shockwaves that hit his own body and center shockwaves at a certain area that hits someone else's body. So basically, he has shock absorption, and he can amplify shock waves at certain points at other people's bodies. And he can also increase his strength by storing it as potential energy and hitting back as kinetic energy. Eventually, Izuku was pretty happy with his form and decided that this was a really cool thing. Izuku went back to school the next day and ended up showing off his quirk, even though it wasn't really allowed. The teachers told him not to show it off, mainly just because the peer aspect of a student running around with their quirk activated that literally gets stronger every single step he takes because of the kinetic energy being stored as potential energy was unarguably decided to be kind of a dangerous thing. And then eventually, Izuku then ended up deciding that he had to, save them. Save everyone he knew. Bakugo and Izuku slowly started to slightly turn against each other. Izuku wanted to use his, quirk for more good and not really look down on people with worse quirks than him, while Bakugo wanted to continue looking down on people with worse quirks. Eventually, the situation happened to where Izuku and Bakugo got into a fight. Izuku knew he couldn't really defeat Bakugo too easily. His quirk was pretty strong, but he also knew Bakugo's quirk was as strong, if not more strong, than his own. He knew Bakugo could overload him, and he could only hold this form for a certain amount of time. Izuku realized that if he held his forms for too long, he would fall unconscious. Izuku said that he needed more power. He needed to be quicker. He needed to be able to outpace Bakugo. And eventually, something weird started to happen. It's almost like Izuku's body started to change. Eventually, his body went from the black scales to just being white tufts of fur with black lines. Izuku felt his body quicken, almost like he was quicker now, and also felt that his body was able to complete any task he wanted now, much more flexible than it was in the past. Izuku also ended up realizing that most of Bakugo's attacks he was able to dodge. Bakugo was kind of confused at this point when he was fighting Izuku, because he had just saw Izuku ended up becoming totally different, almost like some sort of manipulation guy. Bakugo smiled at this and was excited to fight Izuku. He ended up trying to fight Izuku, quickly trying to send attack after attack towards him, to little to no avail. He then tried to fight Izuku more competitively, trying to beat him that way, once again to little to no avail. Eventually, Bakugo ended up trying to fight Izuku once again. Izuku dodged Bakugo's attack and quickly followed up with Izuku trying to, what he could describe only as slap Bakugo. But Izuku didn't realize that in what he figured was his form, he had claws. He'd never seen them before. And then Izuku started to realize that he was in a totally different form. This wasn't his turtle form. Bakugo, seeing how they were both in starting middle school as 6th graders, knew Izuku's quirk for a long time to be some sort of reptile transformation. And asked Izuku, "So have you been hiding this from everyone this entire time?" Izuku was kind of confused at Bakugo's statement, saying that he didn't even know what he was doing currently, and that he just activated his powers. Eventually, Bakugo tried to quickly take out Izuku, but that didn't work as Izuku won the fight. Eventually, later on, Izuku ended up talking with Bakugo and ended up working out their differences after the battle. Eventually, it came to the end of the school, where the teacher was really uncomplacent. Not much happened that day. other than Bakugo and Izuku both heading home. Izuku went home to begin training for the 10 months before UA starts up. He was going to try to apply, and same with Bakugo. Izuku ended up training up his white tiger form, seeing how he had just unlocked it. He ended up training up pretty tirelessly day and night, and his mom was kind of confused by his quirk. They ended up getting examined by a doctor and found out that Izuku's white tiger form worked kind of in the opposite of Izuku's black turtle form. It seemed to work with mainly speed and being a quick, fast attacker, unlike Izuku's previous form, which worked in defense and worked with being a slow counter-attacker. So the opponents would come in and Izuku would finish them off. Eventually, Izuku's quirk ended up getting changed from the base name of Reptile Transformation to now White and Black Transformation. Which, even though it really didn't explain Izuku's quirk that well, the doctors decided that there was really nothing else that they could use to explain the quirk. But some doctors joked around saying how next he was going to get a Vermilion Bird and a Azul Dragon transformation. Those knowing that the four heavenly beasts kind of lamented about this, thinking that those doctors were just joking. Eventually, Izuku finished his training for that day and went down into his house. He laid down in his bed thinking about all the things that had happened and how he had, progressively gotten way stronger. He wondered if there was anything else to his quirk that he didn't know as he drifted off to sleep. And that's where I'm going to leave this episode off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Tell me what y'all think about this down in the comment section down below. And until next time, goodbye.